This is Mirror Business FM. It is the morning drive, and we're talking influencer marketing now. In the GCC, it's projected to grow into a $770 million industry by 2032. Yet brands and creators as well still lack consistent standards around pricing and around performance. MMA MENA has now launched the region's first influencer marketing guide. It's aimed at bringing more transparency and accountability to the sector. Kender is the regional director, and she joins us once again to discuss whether influencer rates across the Middle East can finally be standardized. There's a question. Linda, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Tim. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome. Let's be honest, the influencer sector is huge, but it's kind of operated a bit like a financial Wild West, and it feels like brands have often overpaid based on, vanity, follower counts, while talented creators maybe struggled with historically inconsistent pricing, vague performance metrics. It's not been a level playing field, has it, so far?
No, it really, really hasn't. Just like some people were overpaid, some people were also underpaid. So this guide is aimed at creating equal opportunity for people's efforts and the standards to be a common language rather than the Wild West you were just very rightly pointing out to. It's a little bit like a maturity thing. So it started off as, people just trying their luck sort of through influencers or content creators and, getting whatever they got back. Some people were happy with, if it was 2 sales, if it's a small brand with an expensive product, but it was very inconsistent. It was very unmeasurable. Even though there was measuring ways to find out who and what, and they still didn't look at the right things. So this is changing that conversation from opinion-based marketing to scientific, measurable marketing that can be discussed on a more mature level, which at 770 million projection, it's a massive side of marketing. It's not a nice to have anymore, it's a must have. So as brands and as influencers grow and mature, they need guidance, and that's what the MMA's primary goal in any market is, to create guidance for marketeers to do their job correctly.
Well, it's taken a while, hasn't it? Marketers have metrics for radio, for print, for TV, for programmatic ads. That's been around for years. What's taken so long? Why is it 2026 when we get a kind of a standardized rule book for influencers?
Because it was human based. So word of mouth was the biggest marketing tool since the start of time, right? That is what marketing was. It was word of mouth. Influencers were, just saying things about brands and stuff like that. But when it's human based, it's not as straightforward because a lot of it is opinion. So it's like artists, like, what is that art worth? What is that? Because it was sort of an art form when it started out, it took some time for governments to regulate, to understand how much money is actually being made. There was a lot of payments that were done just through product, so you cannot really reach the return on investment like metric as such. So I believe completely that it was too human-based to be scientific until now. We actually have defined a common language for everyone to speak when they are talking about reach or engagement or influence. So
Okay, so just give me an idea, if you would, how fragmented has influencer pricing historically been across the GCC?
in a very short word, extremely fragmented. So, brands, can receive completely different quotes from creators with similar audience, similar reach, and all other performance levels. And one is quoting $1,000, and one is quoting $100. So it was a lot about confidence in their performance rather than a metric. So it was extremely fragmented. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the biggest challenges at the moment that brands face when they negotiate a rate with an influencer or influencers?
Well, they have to actually decide what they are paying for. So, is it reach? Is it engagement? Is it content production, authority? Many negotiations happen without consistent benchmarks, so making it difficult to compare really creators objectively and return on investment. So, that's the biggest challenge that brands face.
Okay, sorry, I've got loads of quick questions I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
you, and
yeah, go for it.
I
Go for it.
noted
Yeah,
them down. Why has follower count been such a dominant pricing factor for so long?
Because it's 1 + 1 = 2. It was
Okay,
the only
that's straightforward.
numerous thing, it was the only numerous thing that people could actually look at and say, yes, that's a good influencer. Yes, they have the right amount of people in their following. But that has been the most difficult and misguiding, I would say, benchmark to follow. And that's what this guide does. It says, leave the follower count alone. That doesn't tell us anything anymore. Even, I mean, we know brands have like 27,000 followers, and any one of their ads or, like posts would reach only 100 people.
Mm.
So, like, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, with the algorithm changing, with Instagram Meta changing the way the algorithm works and what it shows to who, it was the most misleading but easiest to determine at one stage, which again has become outdated.
Sure. So, how does your new valuation model change the conversation around the worth, if you like, for want of a better word, the worth
Yeah.
of an influencer?
It's basically changing the conversation from how many followers do you have to what actual influence do you actually have. So we look at engagement, authority, and content create category and audience quality to determine the value, rather than, you know, uh, how many followers do you have? Again, the same bad question. So it's basically how much influence does this influencer or content creator hold within their community.
Right. So let's have a look at the financial architecture of the new guide. You've introduced a proprietary valuation framework called Track the Power, right? So that
Yeah.
a regional rate card and an influencer budget calculator. So if I was a imagine I was a chief marketing officer, tricky, I know, driving to work at the moment, somewhere in this region. How does the calculator mechanically change how they price a campaign? What variables are you using to replace the kind of traditional arbitrary negotiation?
Yeah. So basically, the Track the Power is MMA MENA's valuation model. So it uses an impact score that combines engagement levels, category expertise, and creator authority. So we're actually not looking at their number of followers at all. So it takes that out. The idea is very simple. It's basically not all impressions are equal. Okay, so an impression from a trusted expert or respected public figure may be far more valuable than a generic impression. So if you are a CMO and you are now calculating your budget for influencers marketing, you can enter the MMA website, search influencer guide or influencer calculator, it would come up, and then you can just enter, for example, you would see on there which index is for different categories. So for example, sports is 0.5. It would give that metric on the calculator. A celebrity would get another 0.5. And then the category reach or engagement is 0.1. And it gives you a number.
Right.
Okay. And then you get that number and multiply it with the track the power method. And then it will actually tell you how much this influencer is worth on paper. Of course, they might negotiate higher, or they might have even given a lower rate to start with, but at least a CMO will be able to go onto the calculator, enter the information, who it is, and it says there's a guide of how much points each category gets. They would get it there, input that information, and get an actual dollar value as to how much this interaction is worth.
Okay, so it offers, it offers a pretty robust starting point, and then it's, engagement, it's authority, and it's content category impact.
Yes, exactly. The three pillars of influence. So engagement shows how connected a creator is to their audience.
Right.
The authority measures the trust and credibility, and then the category measures relevance. For example, a trusted football creator speaking about sports may deliver much stronger results than a general lifestyle creator who, like Mr. Thank You, for example. If he's saying something about sports, it will not be the same as Ronaldo saying something about sports. So the relevance is measured.
Gotcha. That makes sense. One of the most telling pieces of data in your report is that micro influencers command 45% of GCC market share. So we're not just chasing mega celebrities anymore. So the question I wanted to ask you, why are regional brands finding a better cost per acquisition with smaller, maybe more focused, maybe hyper-focused creators? And how does your new guide protect these micro creators from being squeezed in price terms by, the bigger agencies?
Yeah. Well, again, because it measures influence rather than followers. So
Right.
micro influencers would typically have anything between 10 to 20,000 followers, or even the nano ones from 1 to 10,000. They have higher influence. They are more connected to their audience. So when they speak, first of all, because their audience is smaller, they reach their audience easier. So if they go viral, that's very different. They increase their follower count. But if their content is reaching, so, my husband is a diver, and if someone talks about a very good watch for diving, he would listen to that rather than any ad or anything promotional. He would trust another diver that gives him the real information on that watch. So it's higher engagement and it's higher return on investment. And that's why, this 45% is actually the most critical and most important part of the marketing industry. Of course, celebrity is always going to be there. But for making purchasing decisions, it's much higher on the 45%, micro influencer level.
Linda, how important is data transparency if you want to build trust between brands and creators?
It's critical, and that was what was missing. Okay,
Right.
so transparency helps everyone make better decisions, right? So the guide encourages creators to provide, audience demographics, engagement data, and performance metrics, so brands can understand exactly what they are investing in. So it's not, I'm good, take me. I have influence, take me. That's still opinion, and that's what CMOs have been struggling with. Like, how can I give money to someone who says I'm good? I need some proof before I invest this money, because CMOs have to justify their expenditure, whether we like it or not. It's part of our daily having that conversation with the CFO, where we're trying to convince them that our point of view and our decisions make sense financially, but it's always a struggle. So the CMO needs that solid information of, this is my investment, this is the expected ROI, and this is where it's gonna end us up as. So the data gives knowledge to the CMO to make a more informed decision and protect their decisions.
And we often talk about, the big agencies, the big creators, and, we look at it in terms of a market. But there's another side to this, isn't there? Because standardized pricing could quite possibly make influencer marketing much more accessible for the smaller companies, for SMEs, for startups as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a small brand 7 years ago, and it was made by influencer marketing, and it was, ahead of its time in terms of using influencer marketing that way, and it was the only way an SME can grow. It's really, smaller businesses often struggle because they don't know what a fair rate looks like. So, without the benchmarks, there's no confidence in decision making. There is no negotiation power for the brand, especially because it's a small brand. The creators know that you need them. So, they can easily just go to the calculator and understand, okay, this influencer is quoting $150 per post. That is a fair price. And then they can make that decision more confidently. And especially for small businesses, this is going to be an essential tool. Honestly, I wish I had this tool. And this is where the idea came from. When we were talking with the influencer committee in MENA, we all raised the same questions. And even the bigger agencies that, the influencer agencies, they said there is no way of controlling influencers. So even the agencies, which is their sole reason of being there is to create business with these influencers, were saying how difficult it is to measure and to report on their impact. So it's been I mean, I know this sounds like a generic marketing guide and stuff. It is groundbreaking in terms of the effect that it can have on the region.
Well, I mean, that's the reason to talk to you today, because on the surface, we kind of hear influencer, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, if we're really honest, kind of turn off, because there are so
Yeah.
many influencers that maybe don't offer very much value, let's be honest. But from the other side of the coin, if you like, if you're serious and you work hard, there's, influencers offer potentially a huge amount of value. So it's good news for the industry, for people who are serious as content creators, as influencers.
And let me just clarify one more thing that I think is very unfair to the industry, to the influencer community, let's say. They work so hard. It's not easy creating content. It's not easy creating relevant content. It's like having to be a creative director every day for however many brands you're engaging with. So, and the amount of editing and that's the difference between an influencer and a content creator. So the content creator is more focused on creating a marketing asset, while the influencer is more focused on creating a sale for the brand that they're working with. So
Right.
they're two different things, and this is an important thing also to actually say what's an influencer versus a content creator. But they both work extremely hard on delivering their messages, and it's unfair how much disdain the industry has, in the end user has, because of some bad apples that have been out there. Of course there is, in any other marketing channel. But it's extremely important to say how hard working they really are. And this guide is to protect the influencers as much as it is to protect the brands engaging influencers.
No, that's a fair point, I think, because I think it's very easy to knock content creators, to knock influencers, but there are, as you say, there's an awful lot of creativity and a lot of really, really good stuff out there as well. Did you involve creators in shaping the guide and shaping the benchmark system?
Absolutely. Whenever we are talking about any kind of framework or white paper or guide or anything, we make sure that all the stakeholders are consulted, researched. We even show them the result before it goes out to market. So before this was, we've had through the agencies that we worked with, especially Inflow, they talked to many of their influencers that are within their platform, and they made sure that the information there is correct from both point of views. So of course we are usually talking to CMOs, but influencers were definitely involved in creating this so that it is a fair, because we showed them the calculator and we said, is this a fair sort of approach to what you guys are doing? And mostly it was positive. So of course there will be, again, opinion is, because it's human based and it's self-worth, there is a bit of resistance from the influencer side, but they all agreed that it's a fair way to approach if we are to create a calculator.
Right. Everything's a compromise, Linda. That's the only thing
Yeah.
I've learned in life. Standardizing an industry it's not just about the maths, is it? Making the figures balance. It's about the legal framework. So you look at this region, and it's a good example, if you look at the way the advertising industry works and is interconnected. The UAE and Saudi Arabia have implemented some pretty strict licensing regimes for paid content creators. We're all aware of that. But how does the new guide reconcile these kind of localized regulations into a unified regional strategy? Let's say a multinational brand wants to run a cross-border campaign from Dubai into maybe Riyadh over the summer, for example. What compliance steps could this guide maybe streamline?
Well, this guide is not there to streamline the regulatory side of things. It's much more just about making sure that we all speak the same language and we're able to calculate the influence created. But it does also have a section where it says, okay, so, if you're based in UAE and you want to do influencer marketing in UAE versus Saudi, make sure you have the licenses, for the UAE. There's a dual licensing system that includes commercial licensing and advertising permits, while Saudi Arabia requires the Mawthouk license for creators, and it's more about how much they're earning rather than the license to create content. So the only thing we advise brands is to make sure that when they are signing a contract with an influencer, to make sure that they have the right, correct licensing. That's what we are after.
Okay. Final question for you. I've gone over time, as I always do, but is this going to be like an industry standard framework, do you think? Could you see that coming to life maybe across the MENA region?
Well, I'm hoping that it would actually, the ambition is for it to cross across MENA, of course, and even maybe globally, because this is not unique to the GCC or to the MENA region. That the conversation is not hasn't been measured so far. So we believe a common framework can help elevate the standards across the wider MENA ecosystem and support sustainable growth for the brands, agencies, and creators alike. And we're a global association, so we already have interest from our colleagues in APAC and other regions where influencer marketing is heavy, for creating a similar guide for their region as well. So hopefully the ambition is it catches on and people really start using the calculator on our website, and then we create it for different regions, and you can enter from any region and try it out there.
Okay, it's the region's first influencer marketing guide. Hopefully more transparency, more accountability for the sector. Linda Kender is Regional Director for the Marketing and Media Alliance for this region. It's always good to talk to you, Linda. Thanks for coming back on.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Tim.
This is MENA Business FM.